In the heart of the forest, a man named Quang struggles to survive with an injured leg, haunted by fragments of forgotten memories, visions of a loving wife and a gentle mother. Far away, Linda and her mother refuse to give up, following rumors of a mysterious storyteller who speaks of family and love. Their perilous journey through storms and shadows leads them at last to a wooden hut, where the reunion brings tears, joy, and the rebirth of hope. Love has triumphed over loss. Subscribe now and join us as we unfold this moving story of memory and destiny. The forest had grown familiar to Quang, though at first it had seemed an endless prison of shadows and silence. Each morning he awoke to the rustle of leaves overhead, the low hum of insects, and the distant calls of wild birds. His legs still throbbed, a deep ache that made every step a reminder of how vulnerable he was. Yet he endured. He built a crude crutch from a strong branch, tended to a small herd of goats and a few cattle entrusted to him by the villagers, and learned to survive with the rhythm of the wilderness. Life here was harsh, stripped of comfort, but strangely it gave him space to breathe, to listen, and to feel, and in that stillness, memories began to stir. They came like faint echoes at first, fragments drifting through his dreams. He would see the outline of a young woman, her laughter like the sound of wind chimes on a summer evening. Her smile was soft, tender, and when he tried to reach out to her in the dream, she would always fade into mist. Other nights, he heard a voice gentle, steady, carrying the warmth of home. It was a mother's voice, he realized, though the features of her face remained veiled. These visions left him restless, his chest heavy with yearning. Something inside told him that he belonged to a family, to a love that was waiting beyond the forest. During the day, when his body weakened from tending to the animals or chopping firewood, Quang would sit by the fire in the village clearing. The children loved to gather around him, their curious eyes wide as they begged him to tell stories. At first, he thought he had no tales to give. But then words spilled from him almost involuntarily, half-forgotten images, flashes of warmth. He spoke of a small house filled with laughter, of hands that once guided him, of a pair of eyes that looked at him with unwavering trust. The villagers listened in silence, their faces illuminated by the firelight. To them, it was a mystery, how a man with no memory of his past could paint such vivid pictures of love. Each story he told stitched together fragments of his broken self. Sometimes he would pause, clutching at his chest as if the act of remembering was painful yet necessary. The villagers would offer him food and comfort, urging him to rest, but Quang would shake his head with a faint smile. "No," he would whisper. "These memories. They are all I have." His voice often trembled, as though he feared that if he stopped speaking, the fragile thread connecting him to his forgotten life would snap. One evening, as the fire burned low, he found himself describing a moment so tender it left him breathless. He spoke of holding someone's hand beneath the falling rain, of warmth seeping into his cold fingers, of a promise whispered through trembling lips. The children leaned closer, enchanted, and one of the older villagers asked softly, "Who was she, this woman you loved so deeply?" Quang froze, staring into the flames. He opened his mouth, but no name came. Only a sharp pain in his heart, and tears he had not expected. He turned his face away, ashamed of his weakness, but the villagers said nothing. They understood that this man was carrying a wound far deeper than the injury in his leg. That night, lying beneath the crude roof of his wooden hut, Quang stared at the stars flickering through the cracks. His leg throbbed, but the ache in his chest was worse. He pressed a hand to his temple, whispering words that came like a prayer. "Who are you? Where are you?" Though no answer came, he felt a certainty grow stronger with each passing day. He was not alone in this world. Somewhere beyond the forest, someone was waiting. Someone whose name he could not yet recall, but whose presence he could feel like a heartbeat in the dark. For Linda and her mother, the journey into the forest was nothing less than a pilgrimage of hope. They had followed trails that wound endlessly between tall trees, crossed streams that glittered like shards of glass in the sun, and spent nights huddled together under makeshift shelters, guided only by rumors and the fragile promise that Quang was still alive. Each step weighed heavily with uncertainty, but neither woman faltered. For Linda, the thought of her husband lying somewhere in the wilderness, lost and alone, kept her feet moving no matter how weary she became. For her mother-in-law, it was the fierce love of a mother, the kind that refuses to surrender even when the world says all is lost. Along the way, they encountered villagers who offered them fragments of a story. In one small hamlet, an old woman spoke of a man who limped through the forest with a herd of goats trailing behind him. "He speaks strangely," the woman said, eyes narrowing as she tried to recall. "As if he has forgotten where he came from, yet sometimes his words are filled with longing. He tells the children stories of a wife and a mother." Linda's heart skipped a beat. She gripped her mother's hand so tightly her knuckles turned white. "It must be him," she whispered, her voice trembling. The journey was not easy. The forest was alive with challenges, thorny undergrowth that tore at their clothes, sudden storms that drenched them to the bone, and nights filled with the cries of unseen animals. At times, Linda's strength seemed to waver. She would pause, breathless, staring at the endless trees and wonder if they were walking in circles. Yet in those moments of despair, she would remember Quang's smile, the way his hand had once closed warmly around hers, and her resolve would burn anew. Her mother, though older, walked with a quiet determination, often carrying the heavier burdens so that her daughter-in-law could conserve her strength. Together, they became each other's anchor. It was in a village on the edge of the deeper forest that they finally heard the story that gave them certainty. A young boy, no more than 10, told them about a man who sat by the fire every evening, telling tales of love. "He says there is someone waiting for him," the boy explained, his eyes wide with awe. "A woman with a smile that chases away the darkness. He doesn't say her name, but he looks so sad when he speaks of her. And he always talks of a gentle mother, one who cared for him." Linda felt her heart swell and break at once. Tears streamed down her face before she could stop them. "That's him," she said, her voice choked with certainty. "That's Quang." She looked at her mother-in-law. And for a moment the two women simply held each other, their tears mingling with laughter born of relief. The boy's words had given them more than a clue, they had given them a direction, a light piercing through the suffocating uncertainty. That night, as they rested in the shelter of the village, Linda could not sleep. She lay awake beneath the stars, her mind racing. She pictured Quang as the boy had described him, sitting by the fire, telling stories of her. The thought was both beautiful and agonizing. He remembered her, at least in fragments. But did he truly know who she was? Did he still hold on to their love, or were the memories slipping through his grasp like sand through fingers? Her mother's voice interrupted the spiral of thoughts. "He remembers us, Linda. That is enough. When we see him, the rest will return." The older woman's tone was steady, unshakable. Linda turned to look at her, and in that moment she felt the strength of generations flowing through her. Yes, they would find him. No matter what. The next morning, with the boy as their guide, they set off deeper into the forest. Every sound, the cry of birds, the whisper of leaves, even the distant lowing of cattle, felt like a sign leading them closer to the man they loved. And with each step, Linda's heartbeat grew faster, carrying her toward the moment that would either shatter her or give her life anew. The sun was already dipping low when Linda and her mother finally reached the clearing that the villagers had described. The air smelled of smoke and pine, and through the thinning trees, Linda saw it, a modest wooden hut, weathered but standing firm, like a secret sanctuary hidden in the heart of the forest. Her breath caught. Every nerve in her body hummed with anticipation, fear, and a longing so sharp it almost hurt. She gripped her mother-in-law's hand, and together they stepped closer, hearts pounding in unison. On the porch of the hut sat a man with a crutch resting against the wall beside him. His posture was weary, his legs stretched stiffly in front of him, but his presence carried a quiet strength. He stared into the distance, as if searching for something beyond the horizon, and in his lap lay a small notebook filled with scribbled words. Linda froze, her entire being trembling. Though his hair was longer and his face roughened by hardship, she knew him. Even across the space between them, she knew the curve of his shoulders, the shape of his hands, Quang. The name slipped from her lips like a prayer. The man stirred, startled by the sound. Slowly, he turned his head. His eyes, dark, searching, met hers. For a heartbeat, there was only silence, thick and trembling, as if the whole forest were holding its breath. Linda felt her tears spill over. She couldn't move fast enough. With a choked cry, she ran forward, falling to her knees beside him, her arms flinging around his shoulders. "It's me," she whispered desperately. "It's Linda. I've found you. You're not alone anymore." Quang stiffened in her embrace, confusion clouding his face. He looked down at her, lips parting as though he wanted to speak but couldn't. Behind them, his mother stepped forward, her eyes glistening, her voice breaking with emotion. "My son." At that, something shifted. The notebook slid from Quang's lap, forgotten. He stared at the older woman, his brow furrowed, and then back at Linda, whose tears soaked his shirt. Images surged in his mind, the woman from his dreams, smiling through sunlight, calling his name, the gentle hand that had once soothed him through long nights. And then, like a dam breaking, everything came rushing back, laughter shared over dinner, promises whispered in the dark. The weight of love that had carried him through every hardship, Linda. His voice cracked, rough with disbelief. He lifted his hand, hesitant, trembling, and brushed away her tears. You came for me." Linda's sob turned into a laugh, shaky and joyous. "Of course I did. I would never stop looking for you." She held his hand against her cheek, clinging as though she feared he might disappear again. His mother finally reached them, sinking beside her son. She touched his face with trembling fingers, as if to assure herself that he was truly there. "My child. We thought we had lost you." Quang's throat tightened. His vision blurred as tears filled his eyes, but for once he did not hide them. He grasped both their hands, one on each side of him, and bowed his head. "Forgive me. I couldn't remember. I thought I was alone. But you were always with me. Here." He pressed his hand against his heart, his voice breaking. For a long while, they stayed like that, a circle of warmth and tears amidst the quiet forest. The hut, the crutch, the wilderness, all of it faded against the sheer force of reunion. The man who had once been lost in silence and pain was no longer adrift. His memories had returned, but more importantly, so had his family. As the last light of the sun dipped behind the trees, the clearing filled with the sound of soft weeping, laughter, and whispered words of love. For Quang, it was not just a homecoming, it was rebirth. And for Linda, holding him close, it was the promise that no matter how far he had wandered, love would always guide him back.